First meeting. Thank you for remembering to record. This is our first meeting without Katie. So here we go. Hopefully we can hold it together. Grateful for everything she's done, and also really grateful to have Sarah and Mary on board to help us in the transition. They were both Denise and I were on vacation for February break, and they proceeded with organizing the agenda and sending it out and saving the date. So thank you guys for doing that. With that, I am wondering if there are is there anyone on the public? Who is TV Andrew? Is that you, Andrew? Or is that someone else, Andrew?
Hi, this is Teresa Vanderwoody with EPA Region 11.
Oh, hi, Teresa. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I just wanted the chance to join once, and my husband is just getting here, so I have my camera isn't even on. So I have my son here.
Welcome.
Just for a minute, but hello everyone.
Yeah, are you wanting to speak during this public comment period, or just listen in to what's going on, or what are you thinking?
Just listening in today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for joining us. And I think with that, Denise, is there any updates that you have? We can sort of go over our agenda.
I do not have anything right now.
Okay.
But I think of from the steering committee or the executive committee. I did miss the last executive committee meeting, so I was not present for it.
Okay.
It was last week.
You're cutting in and out a little bit, Denise, but I think I got most of that. And I guess with that, we can, so the goal for this meeting on the agenda is sort of to just go over the calendar of what we're picking dates for the annual meeting, and dates for future meetings, and speakers for like moving forward, and speakers what we've have. So really drilling into that detail. But before that, we can review the draft meeting minutes for February 10th. And if folks have those and have a chance to review them, then I will wait for a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Bob. Motion to approve the minutes. Bob Fisher.
Thank you, Bob. And do I have a second?
I reviewed them and I second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or changes? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
I'll abstain. I was absent.
Thanks, Wayne. I think we can approve those minutes. And with that, does anyone have any general questions about the agenda for today or the transition moving forward before we dive into the calendar?
And
No.
okay, Mary, did you want to make the update? Was there any update or announcements you wanted to make about the reimbursements before we jump into scheduling, or should we do that after?
Yeah, it would be great if I could just quickly say that I've gotten the most recent reimbursement claims from the people that submitted them. Thanks for the back and forth. I think they've all been updated now. So I would like to get us back on like the quarter schedule. So I think we're gonna go through February and March, February and March with, and then in April we'll have, you'll submit another round of your expense claims, and then we can try to from there stick to a 3-month quarter period. So I'll send out an email with a due date probably the first week of April to submit claims from February and March.
Thank you, Mary. That would be great. And maybe even like a calendar like reminder or something would be really helpful for us.
Yeah.
If you think
Yeah, I
that
can
would be
totally do that.
appropriate.
Definitely.
And I noticed that the mileage changed, the mileage rate, the federal mileage rate changed. So just making sure that we have that on the radar for the next expense claim.
Yes, that's right. It's now 70 cents a mile for 2025.
Thanks for catching that.
Mary, I haven't submitted these in the past. And I don't know what percentage of people do, if that's something that you'd be willing to share, like half the people do or most people do. And then the other question I had was when we testify, so if we have a day in Montpelier where we're testifying all day, like does that count as a meeting in terms of a stipend also?
As far as who submits them, I think it's less than half of the people. And not everyone submits them every time. As far as what's eligible, you're eligible for the mileage and for the stipend if you go to Montpelier. I'm looking to Sarah to confirm, but you're not, it's like a per day like reimbursable cost. So it's not like per meeting. If you have like you go to the CAC and you go to testify or you have multiple meetings, it's like a per day thing.
And Hillary, you're just referring to the CAC activities at the State House?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you went up one day and testified a couple of times that you might get that same, like, would you get the same stipend as you would if you went to a meeting on a Monday night for that one day? And it sounds like you might, that would count as a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just
That's-
curious. Like I said, I hadn't, but I don't know. I was thinking maybe I would one day do one quarter. So
I will say if you would like to, it's better to get set up in the system and then do it regularly than do kind of one-off submittals, because the system on our end like kind of times out. Like you have to use it regularly or else it like deletes itself basically. So if you're going to do it, it requires setting up an account with our business office and giving them your social security number and then using that account at least every 6 months. Otherwise your account will lapse and you'll have to restart it. So I can send out the information again of who to reach out to set up your account. But to save you the trouble, really, it's better to just use it regularly.
I'd just like to give a shout out to Mary for navigating this. It's, just a lot of, it's been a little tricky with lots of different moving pieces. And that idea behind having Mary point you to somebody so that way she's not in the position of taking CAC members' social security numbers and just being sensitive with that sensitive information. Okay, any other questions on that piece, so we can move on to some planning together? All right, I am mostly live in the teens world, so the green arrow right in the middle, yay, okay. Oh, send request sharing is not turned on.
Oh,
Who, I sent the request, let's see, Mary, oh, maybe that did it. All right, that was easy.
Yeah, I got a pop-up and I approved you, so
Thank you.
I have the keys.
Great. All right, here we go. We're Miss Katie already. All right, can folks see this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna try. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is just we took this Excel table that Mary had started, sorry, Katie had started and played around with it a little bit and made and organized it. So basically, what we're looking at now is kind of like the 2026 calendar where the 2026 action plan year is the development is really starting in March and then goes through February when it culminates in the presentation to the legislature. And then we start again. Um, and so in this next column is just trying to show like general description of like what the goals and evolution of that process is through the year. We have the meeting dates. And then started to try to populate what the topics are for our meeting. So we're hoping that that's going to be our work together today, and would also love, and before we dig into the details of priorities and topics across our the action plan core areas and some other themes, maybe could look at just this column here together, and if there's any adjustments, it would be really awesome if we could go ahead and figure out a date to pencil in for the June retreat. We could even just do, if we're not savvy enough to figure out how to do a poll on Zoom, we could even just do it by raising hands or something like that. I have some dates that I know are available, that Grand Isle office at Lake Champlain Basin program is available, so we could start there. But I'll just pause looking at this before we dig in. I see Breck, you have your hand.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. Not that I'm against it, but I don't recall that we met in person in November and December, did we, this year?
Nope, we did not. So this is more just identifying that in that time frame in November or December, there was that like in-person meeting. I think this year is in Shelburne. The
Right.
rollout of the
Right.
and the year before was at the sailing center. And
Right.
so it could be either month. So one of these would revert to being an virtual regular CAC meeting.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, no, I should, yeah.
Yeah, our current schedule, sorry, Breck, is 2 in-person meetings. One is the retreat and the other one is the action plan rollout. We've talked
Sure.
about having 4 quarterly or 4 in-person meetings, but most people seem to like the virtual version of our meeting. So we've only been able to do 2 for a while now.
Oh, okay.
And then obviously the legislative presentations in January and February.
Yeah.
Or February.
Yeah, and this is as the way that this looks is this is just listing those monthly CAC meetings and to try to help us focus in on the topics and agendas for those meetings. So this doesn't include, planning for the actual presentations to the legislature and those committees. Any other comments or thoughts we can kind of keep rolling? If folks are comfortable, we could maybe talk about some dates for the retreat, and then Mary and I can keep plugging away with some of the other logistics. Does that sound okay? And then we can use the rest of our time to do some planning for our meetings.
Sounds good.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Awesome. So I was thinking we could start the first week start the first week in June. And yeah, thanks, Meg. That's a good call. Are there Yeah, I guess I don't have a sense of who were from the CAC that were missing.
We're missing Lori Fisher.
Okay.
And who else are we missing?
Eric Clifford.
Eric, yes.
Okay.
And then really we try and get the representatives as the legislative representatives as well to that meeting. So it's important that they respond.
Okay. Yeah, and so if we could get a critical mass, a sense of dates so we could have a critical mass, then that could help us just reach out to a smaller subset of folks to confirm which dates work best. I don't know that we can always achieve, 100%, but we don't have to, commit to a specific date if we don't have everybody here that we need.
Sarah, my only concern about the first week of June is I don't know if the legislature is going to be out by then. So I just think we need to be,
Okay.
unless we go with that Monday, when they're not in session. But I've heard from a couple legislators that they think they're going to be there past the beginning of June.
Okay. Yeah, that was another question. And okay, and we can also Eric Howe on another call earlier today was teasing me about being overly optimistic for getting a date nailed in with you all. So we might resort to the tried and true poll, but hope springs eternal. What about, do we have a sense if the third week, and I think the second week is the same week as the steering committee meeting, and what about the third week in June?
Works for me.
I think I'm mainly thinking, in the Monday through Thursday realm, ideally the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
The RISE Summit is on the 17th. The UVM Rural Innovation something Summit.
Okay.
Is that Tuesday? Wednesday the 18th looks good on my calendar, and the 19th is Juneteenth.
Right.
So I don't know how people feel about that. Friday, I'm wide open. That 20th,
Okay.
and I think we've done it on a Friday in the past, and that seems to be a good date to do it. It's an easier day for people to be out of the office if they have a full-time job.
Can you all still see my screen or no?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can still see
Okay.
it, yes.
You're still seeing the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so last year, I think it was the 13th, which I think was a Thursday. So would the 8th, so it sounds like we're looking at the 16th, 18th, or 20th?
Those all work for me.
Works for me.
Yep, those work for me, but try not to pick any warm, sunny days because summers are short.
Okay.
Yeah, the 20th, my kids get out of school on the 19th. So the 20th is a little trickier for me,
Yeah.
but the 16th and the 18th.
Okay.
I would prefer the earlier dates if possible. I'm
Okay.
in the middle of scheduling a trip. I think it's likely to be this last 2 weeks of June.
I'm sorry, Andrew.
I'm scheduling a trip that's likely to be the last 2 weeks of June.
Okay.
But I don't want to mess up the calendar based on that. But
Okay.
I mean, Mondays,
16th
the
could work.
9th and the 2nd also work.
Well, I think there was concern about the legislature still being in session that first week.
Right, but they don't meet on Mondays.
Oh, I didn't know if we wanted to still have the retreat, try to have the retreat after, so as part of the
I
reflection.
see what you're saying.
Can Andrew, can we send you off as a bon voyage on if we aim for the 6th?
Yeah. Don't overly schedule it based on that. I will try to make it.
Okay. So we'll reach out to that remaining group unless there's anybody else. Is there anybody on the call that 16th and or 18th does not work for?
I would also just put the 9th as an option.
Okay,
So we
Anybody-
have three options out there.
great. And Mary, I'm including you. I have your calendar pulled up and I don't see any major conflicts for us either on those dates. So we will, if folks could please hold those 3 dates for now, we'll try to get that scheduled as soon as we can.
Did you say 9th, 16th, 18th?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I will just make sure that, yeah, it looks like those. Thank you, Meg, for sticking that in the chat. Appreciate it.
I think we had a CAC meeting scheduled on the 9th, so I presume that whatever we choose, this would override that meeting.
Yes, that's the idea. And I'll go ahead and put that right here. Okay, great. And so that would be in Grand Isle. All right, my noisy children have just arrived home, so we'll see how this goes. I hope I don't have any interruptions, but I might. So this is the list that you all, I think, have seen before in previous meetings that worked on with Katie, trying to identify topics and who speakers that you would like to invite. And Mary and I kind of took this and we worked on it in a couple ways. Mary went ahead and went through and made a list of all of the different speakers and topics we've had for the last couple of years. We'll try to make this spreadsheet available for folks to kind of look through, and then grouped them by the different priority areas in the action plan. And then she also went ahead and just listed them by the different thematic areas. And the hope, the point of this is that kind of when we're trying to populate our goals and priorities for speakers, we can use this as a reference to identify what gaps, where we might need to revisit, or where, yeah. Does that make sense? Sound good? Okay.
Yes.
Any questions or?
I'm excited to learn the gaps.
Okay, all right. So then I also took, today, I just took this list and I just organized it a little bit more. And so basically all of the topics that you all had identified are copied here, but I grouped them by theme in hopes that that would be helpful to us all. And then what I also did was just where there was like a directly relevant recent presentation on that subject, I added that in here with the last date. And then I have also confirmed Claire Madden to present at our April meeting as requested by our chairs. And so that is all set. And I think Andrew and Breck had identified for the climate action update that should happen in June or later.
That plan is, the final plan is not due until 1 July, so it should be near completion in June, but it won't be official until 1 July, assuming it all goes to plan.
Okay, thanks, Breck. So yeah, so up to the CAC kind of strategic timing for that, whether June's okay or if we should plan to push it out. So so we can, since this was already a populated list, we can work off of this. We can also toggle between, look at the agriculture tab. I think there's really only been one in the last couple of years, one presentation on the Future of Ag Action Plan a couple of years ago. So I don't want to make folks dizzy. I think this approach does require a lot of flipping between tabs. Denise, Karina, others, any, we could start here. And this of course isn't necessarily a complete list in any one of these subjects, in any of these themes, so we could add to it. But I think what a good goal would be is to identify a few targets for the spring. We have a presenter lined up for next month, but maybe 1 or 2 ideas for May and June, and then another 1 or 2 for the summer and a few for the fall. So that way we're not, we can be flexible based on speaker availability, etc.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Sarah, is the idea to tackle all of the topics in column C in a given meeting? So you've got agriculture there, and if you look at column A, if we took up each of those topics in a meeting, that's pretty much the whole year right there. So is the idea to take up all of those topics on in a topic area, or whatever we can get of it?
Well, I think, that's the purview of you all in the CAC. I think what we wanted to do was just to sort of help organize this and present it and structure it for a way for you all to digest and respond to. You're right that there's a limited number of meetings. But if these are the key priorities and kind of themes that come up, it might be helpful. I have an underlying assumption that it might be helpful to structure, to make sure that maybe you're touching base with those at least once a year, and priority areas within those.
In fact, I like the idea of having a meeting that's thematic, so if we had more than one talk, that'd be nice to have them grouped. If that can be arranged. It might not be, tactically available or whatever, logistically possible to do that.
Great. Yeah, and the hope is front loading this planning and thinking, and maybe there will be some offline work needed after this, that then we, will be set up better for success if we have more lead time to try to get those pieces in place. Andrew, and then Wayne.
Yeah, this is partly a question. I'm not sure how this has worked in the past, but I'm thinking about the Vermont Climate Action Plan update process that's underway. And we could wait till they basically finish that plan and hear from them. But would it be appropriate for us to try to meet while they're still deliberating it, to have some influence over making sure that the nature-based solutions that benefit the priorities of our plan for Lake Champlain are well taken care of in the climate action plan update. So it's a question as to whether are we just asking for them to present to us, or are we actually asking for an opportunity to provide some input on the process that they're going through? So, and I don't know how open they would be to that at this point, but just a question.
Maybe would lean on the I think I don't recall where that idea came for that presentation, but appreciate there could be value in kind of either.
I think the idea came jointly from Andrew and I, because we're both serving on subcommittees of the plan. I agree with Andrew. It would be good if we could do this earlier. What I fear is that the various pieces of this are still very much in draft form, and that for us to get that sort of overview, we might have to have each of the section leads, come and talk to us, and that just may be harder to do logistically than if we were to wait. And I do want to say I like Andrew's intent of us being able to influence what might go into the plan, but on the other hand, we might be able to get the director of the climate change office to come in July and talk to us about the various pieces and the key takeaway messages and so forth that would then inform us, and we would know that that's kind of the settled the settled form of and framework for the plan.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's someone in the staff that we can sort of ask those questions of as to what seems appropriate. I am fairly sure, because I do get as you do, Breck, the Climate Council updates fairly regularly, that they're pushing hard to try to pull this off within the time that they have. So, there may not be a lot of openness to introducing new input at this point.
So it could potentially be looking to having somebody come in as early as May, if it makes sense to be trying to influence the outcomes of the plan, and then as late as July or even, later based on availability, et cetera. If it's more about just an educational presentation, just want to make sure I'm capturing. So we could reach out to staff to learn about what feels most appropriate, and then also what's feasible. Does that sound like a next?
Yeah, I'd just reach out to Jane Lazorchak and
Okay.
ask, hey, could you come in May? I do agree with Andrew's approach.
Sure.
Can you come in May? And if she says, no way, just can't do it. At that point, I don't think it matters whether it's July, August, September, October. I mean, the plan will have been finalized at that point. And it's a matter of us then understanding what are the big changes, what are the big elements of the plan, and what are the big changes in the plan. And once it's a public document, it kind of doesn't matter, I don't think, when that happened. It could happen whenever. But if we could get her in May, that would be terrific.
It also wouldn't be bad to, we've often had presenters at the annual meeting as well, the retreat. So June could be an option as well.
Okay.
I like that idea. If it works for them. When are they trying to finalize it by? Sorry, I haven't been following.
1 July.
1st of July. Okay. So they might not have the capacity to do June, but maybe they do. Sorry, there's a couple other hands up. Wayne and Hillary.
Wayne.
I think Wayne was first.
Yeah, I just to comment a little bit. It's hard for me, unfortunately, not being close to there to kind of have a handle. I'm kind of curious how the legislative session is going relative to water quality issues. I mean, from what I'm seeing, there's a lot of focus on the education side, housing, and I'm potentially, I think the only water quality issue that they're working on closely is the chloride issue. So obviously funding is probably going to be more of a concern moving forward. So I guess my only point there is they may not even get into some of the items into any detail this year on some of the things on the action plan. Is that correct, or be any changes? So, I mean, I would think the speakers and kind of their expertise that we want to focus on over the next few months in anticipation of putting the next plan together, I guess it's kind of see how the legislative session is going to kind of play out. I guess funding, I think, is a major concern of ours, and especially with some of the uncertainty moving forward. So I'm not sure that helps on the technical side, but I mean, I think our kind of effort has been on the speakers, at least in learning, I guess, is to kind of, mainly make sure we're kind of set up and we have a good handle on what some of the potential issues are over the next few months, but also, what needs to also be in the next action plan.
Wayne, are you thinking that having some report outs at the retreat on those topics to help inform next year's action plan would be helpful, or something targeted for April or May?
I guess even maybe before that, because, and again, I'm not close enough. Unfortunately, it's just what I'm reading in Digger and stuff, but I don't see that any of the water quality issues, except for Florida, really get a whole lot of attention. And I think, my big concern with the uncertainty at the federal level is, we're going to go backwards on some of these programs. So I think our focus and attention may need to be a little bit different than it has in the past. I mean, there's been coming out of the COVID with all the funding, I think we've been fortunate to have some flexibility there, but I think the cost and funding, I think some of those programs are probably going to be critiqued even more moving forward. So I think even maintaining the same level of funding may be a challenge. And I just, for an example, we look on the waste, as our background is on the wastewater side, or mine is, and boy, the need out there for that is just off the charts over the next, 3 to 5 years. I mean, I think with what you probably saw for some of the bond votes here last week, there's probably $500,000. I mean, $500 million just in need parked there. And that's even if we sustain the same level of funding we have in the past, that's still not going to come close to meeting the future need for some of that infrastructure work. So.
Wayne, I don't think you're wrong in what your assessment is of what's going on in the legislature this year. I don't know if Karina has a different perspective, but they are not addressing a lot of water quality issues. And I think the fear of the infrastructure is, and how we fund the huge infrastructure needs in Vermont going forward is definitely a conversation that's happening. So,
So I guess my fear, so the action plan may not even change a whole lot for next year. I mean, other than maybe the chloride issue gets somewhat addressed. So, I guess my point is, the speakers and things that we want to hear maybe kind of focus on kind of what there could be moving ahead.
what do you mean what there could be moving in terms of?
Well, I'm not sure we've really got
contaminants?
the kind of bandwidth or capacity to get into a lot of new stuff at this point, because the action plan for next year could be very similar to this past year if, they really don't get into some of those, other than we want to really make sure we're paying attention to the funding, make sure we don't go backwards on some of those, existing programs.
I mean, I think the big thing that the Clean Water Fund and how we get that money from the property transfer tax is supposed to sunset in 2027.
Yeah.
I heard from the secretary that the governor's in favor of keeping that mechanism for funding. I don't know if there's a role for us to play or if there's something that we want to put in our action plan for next year. I don't know if they're voting on it this year or not. I haven't heard, so, but I know that there's been conversation about it. There are some legislators that want to use that money for something else. So I think if we're talking about funding and what we can control, that's one thing I think we can control as a Citizens Advisory Committee, because that money has been very beneficial. And I think our next meeting or presentation at the April meeting is going to be on that funding and what it's accomplished. Is that right,
Thank you.
Sarah? Have we confirmed that yet?
Yep. Yeah, the Claire is available to present on the Clean Water Performance report.
Great.
And the different ways that we look at the different performance measures that those dollars have achieved. Hillary and then Bob. I'm just going left to right.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I should have called on them. Thank
I do agree that sunsetting funding should be a priority for us to just, I know it's just a portion, but I think it would be great for us to advocate for that funding. So to stay on top of that date and then what they're doing in the legislature, if we can. The other thing that we talk about every year at the legislature is sort of that interface between Agency of Ag and ANR, and now with the orders from EPA and that changing, I feel like it would be good. I don't think anything's happened yet. Yeah, that DEC Ag alignment. I don't think anything's happened yet. And so I feel like this is a topic that we would put at the end of the year and then keep up with whether something does happen in terms of DEC outlining how they might manage the inspection process and how that would look and the timing for, as it comes over from Agency of Ag, and maybe the funding for that as the federal funding kind of maybe evolves over this year. So just one that I feel like we do testify about on a regular basis. So it'd be good to keep up with what's happening there. And also they may not be ready to share much with us at this point, but maybe toward the end of the year, we can connect back with ANR and Agency of Ag on that one.
Hillary, when you say end of the year, do you mean like fall 2025?
I was thinking that it would,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know that maybe something's happened in that realm, but I haven't heard that it has. I think Marley Roop would have a pretty good sense of where that process is at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if just eyeballing this, we have a couple of topics already for the next spring, early summer months. And so if we're trying, to populate a plan for the later months too, that would be meaningful and productive. That seems like a good target. Bob?
Yeah, sorry, I struggle with my mute. So I would just say that the Vermont legislature moves very fast and furious right now, and we're almost at crossover. And there are all sorts of bills out there that are probably not going to come off the wall, but there are a lot of bills that have all sorts of impacts, huge bills. So I think it's really going to be the next meeting when we see what makes it. Thank you. I mean, there's the 3-acre bill that is huge for the TMDL. There's biosolids management bills. One of them, I was trying to pull the number up right now, but sorry, it's not worth the effort. Bans land application and landfilling of biosolids, which leaves you with what? Thank you.
So at our last annual retreat, we had Lauren Hurl from VCV provide a policy update, and we could do something similar at the end of this session that aligns with our annual retreat if we wanted to.
I mean, I think that's why Karina, what you just named is why we have our annual retreat after the session. So
Right.
who do we think would be I mean, I know, sorry, Sarah, we're distracted. I know we have to like plan our next few meetings, but who although it's April, it's March, April, May, so we need a topic for May. June would be the annual retreat. July, we might have the climate action plan folks come. And then August, and then September and October is really when we're writing our action plan. But just backing up, so who would be an appropriate person to maybe come and talk about a legislative wrap up for us? I mean, Lauren was great last
Lauren
year.
was great. Dan Fingus took over Lauren's position at Vermont Conservation Voters. He would be great. Jared Carpenter could, definitely speak to the issues related to water, which are those that are mostly impacting our work, but not entirely. So those are some ideas. Or it could be a combination. John Groveman, NRC as well.
That's great. One of my questions, and maybe you can pull it back up, Sarah, if you haven't, the list of topics that are in the spreadsheet. Is there something on there that anybody's very passionate about hearing about in, like I know we had people have been advocating for the tactical basin plans. I know people have also asked maybe for the Watershed United folks, maybe of the different watershed groups to come and talk about what their priorities are. I'm just curious for the May meeting, April and May. What topics would you like us to prioritize to put on our agenda to hear about before the legislative wrap up at our June retreat?
So in April, we do have Claire. So I
Okay,
don't
that's
know if
right.
we need
Sorry, thank you.
another
Yep.
speaker. So then
Yep.
May there was maybe a vote for reaching out to Jane Lazorchek on the climate action plan, but that's sort of why I'm hoping to have like a seasonal list versus like target exactly to the month, so it can, we can have a little flex. But that's a great point, Denise, like having the tactical basin and watershed united could be a nice pairing and a good lead in ahead of the retreat. And then if we can get that,
I think that would be good because those would be the groups directly working in watersheds. I think that would be I would like to hear from them. And if we can't get the climate action folks at that meeting.
I agree. And I know that we've had, multiple speakers at meetings before. So, I think we could pair up some as well. I don't know how long Claire plans to speak in April. But.
Yeah, and that one could theme well with like talking about some of the funding initiatives leading to conversation there. Okay, and then we have ag in the fall. Maybe Denise, I think it was Denise just asked, like, are there any burning, any priority areas, things that folks want to hear more about ahead of finalizing the next action plan next year?
Okay.
Sarah,
Go ahead, Brock.
Sarah, could I just get sorry to go backwards, but could I just get a clarification? The topic on the tactical basin plans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I was one of the people at least who advocated for this, but what I was talking about more was the Clean Water Investment Program, the Clean Water Initiative, which is related but a very different thing. And I at least to me, that's gone kind of quiet, and I would love to get an update. I guess I'm a little less interested in the tactical basin planning than I am in the Clean Water Initiative and how that is playing out.
Okay. So what, both myself and Mary and yours truly here are from the Clean Water Initiative program. So we, what types, like, is it sort of defined here, Breck, that, you know, what are some of the funding initiatives?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Unless, like, you know, the front end is the funding initiatives that we're developing and implementing, and then on the back end is the performance report. And it sounded like there was interest from our chairs to have Claire come present on the performance report, which, like, at a very high level captures you know, what's being achieved with all of these funding initiatives, and also with other funding partner, federal and others, and other state partners outside of the Clean Water Initiative program. But we could also, including Mary and I, could also talk about some of the specific different funding initiatives we have in that we're managing. Some are general and some are really specific and targeted in different sectors and to different audiences.
Yeah, that would be great. Per the charge of the CAC, it would also be, so what are the gaps? You know, what could we be advocating for if that is needed for these programs? Okay, so it sounds like there's an interest from you in drilling down a little bit more to the funding, to the actual, like, types of funding initiatives. Well, I don't want to get too granular, but you know, if there are clear gaps that, so it's, you know, I don't mean to review every single funding initiative, but if in the rollout of this program and the performance of this program, there are some things that are emerging as, this is working, and so that's great. Let's talk about that a little bit. But, you know, there's some things that need to be tweaked, or there's some additional funding that is needed. What are those things? Okay. Great. So for how about as a proposal, you know, the basin program dollars, that what if as a proposal, Breck, to dig into that, we start by having Claire come, and then maybe Mary and I can share some updates on the Lake Champlain Basin Program EPA dollars that comes into the Clean Water Initiative program. And what's unique about the portfolio of projects is a good amount of them are sort of setting are like pilot projects and funding initiatives to kind of get into the system to build capacity for new clean water projects in different areas. So that could be a start, and then we could revisit what information is still missing for the CAC to learn more about. Okay, so is that going to include somewhere in there, is that including how these clean water councils are being set up and funded and what they're doing? The Clean Water Service Provider, the QUIS? Yeah. Okay, so that is a little different. So that's more, I think that's covered in the Act 70. I think that's what's implied in the Act 76. Yeah. Okay. And so I can look into finding if that's a priority too. I can look in, and that would be a fine pairing as well for that. Personally, that's what I was interested in. How well those service providers are working out. Yeah. Great. Okay.
As well as the basin councils. What are they called? Yeah. Basin service providers.
Basin water quality councils.
Thank you.
Yeah.
WEX. So I think we'd have to be careful what speaker we got in terms of getting, like, I mean, in terms of how are they working out, like different people, different stakeholders would have different opinions about how well it's working out. So that might be, maybe there would be I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but.
Is there ideas of someone who could provide more of an objective update?
I don't know. Like, I feel like the state has you know, the state would have certain objectives and they would be able to maybe talk about how it's going in terms of the efficiency, like where are people in terms of meeting their targets? And then I think different groups have had different sort of, you know, they've interfaced differently with this program. So it just might depend on, like, a watershed group might feel differently about it than somebody who's actually a QUISP, for example. I don't know.
And
Hillary,
Maybe we need a panel.
I was wondering that, like a watershed organization, so a BWIC member, a QUISP person, and someone from DEC maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea because I've gotten feedback locally about how it is or is not working for them. But I've also heard in other parts of the state that it seems to be going very well or from a different group. So I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think some of the inefficiencies have actually come from the sort of complicated formula that makes up all these grants. So that would come out from the people who are trying to use the program and like apply into it, and probably from the QUISPs too, but maybe not as much from DEC, but they hold all that programmatic knowledge.
I appreciate what Hillary is saying. I want to avoid this coming across as an audit of what, you know, of what the program is doing, and rather that it is, hey, what's working well and what could work better? What can we do to help it work better?
Right.
But having a panel would be a fabulous idea.
Definitely.
Okay, and so that might not be able to be set up in the near term, but that's I think that's something, and I don't know that there's some of these things seem like in setting a calendar are sequential, and things happening first would benefit later presentations and learning for the development of the action plan. But this seems like if we can have a strong panel set up when we can schedule that would be great at any time. Is that?
Yeah, my personal opinion is that this is not time sensitive, so it could be scheduled as we could make it happen.
Okay.
And the only other piece to that, sorry to keep talking about this, that I guess I would love to think about what the gaps are, or how we can do better, is also the phosphorus accounting piece. So like the actual formula. I don't know if we could add someone into the panel that could speak to the formula.
Yeah, and that, let me, are you talking, Karina, about the formula for the QUISPs, or like for phosphorus accounting in general? Because I think a lot of that could be, I think some of that Claire would be well positioned to, and my team, and then there's the Clean Water folks from the Clean Water Initiative program, and then there could be others for the panel.
That sounds good.
Okay, let me do a little bit more learning and reach out and see if I can help kind of support these presentations for y'all. Okay, I see Bob and then Andrew.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt this great conversation with something somewhat off topic, but I guess my question is more procedural. We have not met with the governor or lieutenant governor, which is our charge, and which I've always done in my 15, I don't know, I've been here in South Burlington 10 years, and I was on it long before that. I don't care that much one way or the other, but we've never not. As far
Thanks
as
for bringing that up. Yeah, I think Katie tried. Thanks for bringing that up, Bob. I was going to mention that at the beginning of the meeting. We usually get in and see them in February, and we haven't scheduled it at their offices yet.
I mean,
thank you, Bob. It's
yeah, that's our actual charge, is to present it to the legislature, governor. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, yeah, thank you. It is not from a lack of trying to get that meeting scheduled, and I can reach out again.
I would think the lieutenant governor, his assistant is James Ellers, who was the chair of the CAC. So you could try that. Good luck.
Andrew?
Yeah, I am certainly interested at the retreat or one of our meetings over the next few months in getting an update on fisheries restoration in Lake Champlain and its tributaries, and aquatic invasive species, the status of various programs related to that, including into the two canals. Whether it's through Vermont Fish and Wildlife Basin Program or could even reach out to some federal agency partners as well, just to get a summary of where things are and see if there are any issues that we can help with, particularly maybe in the face of reduced federal funding available for some of those programs. So that'd be something I'd be interested in to get an update on.
I second that.
So I heard the AIS piece, Andrew, and then it was also the fisheries restoration work.
Yeah, I almost would frame it as an update on fisheries restoration, and then as part of that to really understand the current status of the various ongoing efforts to limit aquatic invasive species getting into Lake Champlain, or some of the aquatic invasive species that are already in the lake, and efforts to manage those. So just more of a general update across those topics.
Okay. And I think, I don't know if Meg is still here, but yeah, it looks like from it looks like that it's been some time since that we've had some AIS discussions at the to the CAC.
Yeah, happy to bring those back, Sarah. We can work on that.
Okay, thanks, Meg.
Yeah, and I think Meg makes a really good point too, that those partners are doing a State of the Lake Fisheries meeting. I assume that's a public online meeting again this year, and that's on the really quick.
It's this Saturday from 9 to 1. It's actually in person at the Robert Miller Community and Recreation Center, which is the new north end of Burlington. I think they are going to record it, but I don't know if they're making it virtually accessible.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So we have, I think, we are starting to have a good solid list here. I'm seeing some of these buckets have some gaps, but we've kind of, that might be okay based on the substance of the conversation we've had so far. But we could be approaching a robust, solid agenda. We probably do want to leave some flexibility as the year goes on, but this I think is going to be really, really helpful. I hope others do too. I mean, what else is missing? I'm not able to follow the chat, so if there's any comments in there that I should be aware of. Mary, any thoughts, comments?
Go ahead, Denise.
I just have a question kind of related back to Bob's, and I know you guys have been trying, but is there anything that we can do? So sometimes when Katie would run into issues scheduling appointments with either the legislature or the governor's office, she would just either CC me and then I could do a follow-up email, or CC the chair or vice chair.
We can include you on the next follow-up.
I'm in Montpelier every day this week, so I'm happy to like walk over and go talk to James and see if there's, you know what I mean? I mean, that would be for the lieutenant governor, and then, yeah, that would be, why don't you just CC me on your next round of emails
Okay,
this week?
and I don't know that we had even reached out to the lieutenant governor. I think we were only reaching out to the governor's office and the secretary's offices.
All right, we typically have definitely met with the lieutenant governor, and he's
So-
new, so it would be great to meet with him.
Absolutely, we can add that to the list.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't have anything in the developed land use space. And I'm curious if there's any interest in elevating the previous presentations that we listed here had to do with septic and chloride, which also goes into the emerging contaminant space. Learning about the 3-acre legislation might be in the update after the session might come already, you know, when there's reflection on this last session or this current session. Wayne?
Yeah, Sarah, that's what I was thinking. I was wondering if anybody was interested, maybe having somebody from watershed management coming in, but aside from the funding issue, maybe more the technical side, just to see how the 3-acre rules go on the implementation. I know there's some staffing issues, some of those, maybe a focus on some of the non-point sources. And again, not to audit, I guess, maybe just to kind of see where they're at on things and, do they need more resources, how things are going, I guess. My impression, a lot of that's kind of behind was a lot of the changes in staffing and challenges with the 3-acre, but maybe on the technical side, it would be just good to have a better understanding where they're at. And that could be kind of maybe a priority for the next action plan, if there isn't much movement on that in this legislative session.
Do you mean, Wayne, like where they're at in terms of status of permitting?
Yeah,
like
just
permits
general.
authorized?
Yep, and maybe not limit it to just the 3-acre rule, but some of the other stormwater programs, I guess. If they're hitting some of the milestones, some of the targets, and I guess maybe separate from the funding side, it's just some of the, because I know the developed lands and there's a lot of discussion about housing and kind of redevelopment. And I know that's always been from a water quality issue. The non-point sources are still a big lift that needs a lot of attention over the next few years. So I don't just put that out there to see if that's of interest to anybody.
So somebody from the stormwater program potentially?
Yeah, it could be, or it's just somebody from watershed management. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be valuable to have an update post session on the stormwater. I'm also curious about the stormwater manual that the state has. I know they've been updating that, but getting a sense of where that's at as well would be helpful. Or how that's tied to the 3-acre. I also wonder if under the wastewater section, there was the fund that we supported in our action plan to update residential on-site wastewater residential systems that Julie supported, and there was more funds added to that, and I'm just wondering if that's how that's doing and whether we should continue to support it and what's the update there as well. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I will look.
I feel like it might have been something like Healthy Homes or something.
Yes, the Healthy Homes Initiative, I think.
Yes, Healthy Homes Initiative.
I'm forgetting, was there a presentation on?
I don't think we've had one in a long time on that. If we've ever had one.
Yeah, I remember that
I
there
don't
was.
believe, I don't believe we have.
Yeah.
I'm
And
sorry.
we
Yeah, I
had-
don't believe, we've never had that, I don't think. Thank you. We had the one on Lake George. Thank you.
Yeah, but not the Healthy Homes Initiative here.
Yeah, I think I do remember that there was a like, I think that was in the list of potential presentation ideas previously, and maybe it fell off. And the clean water through the EPA LCBP dollars, we manage some 2 or potentially 3 years of funding for some on-site wastewater technical assistance and education and outreach programs. Okay. So I'm just sort of tagging these to elevate, and then can kind of work to try to get these scheduled. What is there? We don't have anything really in the based on how our conversations evolved, and we've given some definition of what we might have been interested in for the watershed approach. I'm feeling like this might be okay and covered in some of the Act 76 and funding updates. But wondering about priorities in the public access space. And
Maybe it's just locational, but I was definitely interested in hearing about the Paddler Trail. And I don't know, we keep talking to Representative O'Brien about the access, and then I know I've been really bad about following up with them about that, but maybe we could sort of figure out if there's anything we could do to help with the local access or state park, that he was interested in supporting down here. He said he'd reached out to somebody who was the head of maybe the commissioner of Parks and Rec. Danny, maybe? That sounds right.
Hillary,
Commissioner Fitco?
Hmm?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Hillary.
Oh, did you hear some of that or just not the name?
The name, I didn't hear the name.
He used like a nickname, and so he said something like, "Oh, I've been chatting with Danny" or something like that, and I didn't know who it was.
probably Danny Fitzko, right?
Yeah.
If that's Parks and Rec, then that makes sense. Yeah.
Commissioner. What Paddlers Trail are you talking about, Hillary?
It was on our list. It said the Otter Creek Paddlers Trail update and
Otter
need for
Creek
South
one.
Lake access. So they were kind of linked together. Like, so it's,
Yep.
River and then the lake.
And then the lake. Okay.
Yeah, that's
And
what it
we
says on
did
it.
get an update
On
from
the,
them.
on
Yeah,
the Otter.
Yeah, so right, the last presentation was in April, almost a year ago. Sorry, were you thinking that it would be the same? Would it be interested in having a different speaker?
Oh, I don't know. I just saw it on the list and I missed. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be the second time that I recommend something that's recently happened, but
Well, I mean, it depends how you define recent. You could be good because it was already 11 months ago. So
maybe it's just a short something too, a little quick update and then a discussion. I don't know if we need like a working group or something just to figure out too, like what are our next steps. I just feel like before we go and say we need more South Lake access to the legislators next year, that it would be good if we
had a
kind of
plan.
knew, like LCBP had a grant and people hadn't applied to it. And I don't know what happened with that. If there was another round, we should connect with Danny Fitzko and see what, like what their ideas are, and Representative O'Brien, maybe.
That's a great.
so like an update on the potential formation of a state park.
Or of a South Lake access.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really
But
what
like
we're talking about.
Yeah. And if we need, like maybe I'm assigned something to do some outreach or something, and I'm happy to do that. I might need a little bit of a deadline. It just doesn't show up anywhere else. It's not part of any of my grants or anything right now. So it's just, if people are interested in this, it's just something that felt like we should do something, and maybe it's behind the scenes, not at a meeting, before we
I
go testify
agree.
again.
And in terms of public access topic in general, Meg, I'm not in terms of the land acquisition granting program. I don't know if those projects, I know that a good number of them had a public access component, which is really exciting. I don't know if they're ready for presenting or not, but that could also be a neat topic.
I think it depends on when in the year. Right now
Yeah.
we're, struggling to get them to contract basically. So yeah, I would say if we have some executed contracts, then we could talk about projects, but they're not going to start working on them until later. Yeah, probably not until the fall.
Yeah, okay. So so that could be a neat topic too for the CAC to hear about, like a portfolio of land acquisition projects that are in early stages, that are providing land access in the Lake Champlain Basin.
Definitely.
And Hillary, are you talking about an access point further south than like the Benson site? Are you talking about something further south than that?
Yeah, I think that was the idea, and I'm not sure. I think it's a lot of private land, so I'm not sure. I think it was just maybe looking at that and talking to the Nature Conservancy that has land down there, just seeing if there'd be any ability to access.
Okay. Great.
Well, this might be plenty for us to keep working on and then we can give updates on how it's going and the calendar is coming together.
And sorry, it's Bob Fisher again. I have poor cell here. I just like to reiterate what Wayne said, that actually whenever you do, if you could integrate with the septic talk on the on the initiative, the cost of infrastructure, I mean, it is looming. It affects housing and everything. 54% or 55% of Vermonters are on septic tanks. And as the pressure goes up and up and up in the central areas, that bond in Burlington was huge, and that barely keeps them, replaces old infrastructure. That's not really going to, it's extremely expensive and a very large topic. So I just like to reiterate what Wayne Elliott said. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Great.
Oh, go ahead, Karina. Were you going to say something?
No, sorry.
No, that's okay. Anything else for tonight? Really, well, I just also want to say thanks everybody for diving into this. This is what keeps us kind of organized and ready for the year ahead. So really appreciate everybody taking time tonight to kind of organize our schedule and bringing feedback to Sarah and Mary so they can help us plan going forward. And Sarah, thanks for organizing that spreadsheet. That's really helpful. I think one thing, and I think we started doing it, is just tracking because not everybody attends all the meetings, but just tracking presentations that we have had. And if there's any links on that same spreadsheet, any links to the presentations that have happened, once we put the date of the presentation, put the link to the because we're recording these all, and I know they're somewhere in the space of the webinar internet. If we could have a link to all of the presentations, because kind of added to or all of our meetings just added to that spreadsheet that you're developing, I think that would be really useful going forward.
Great. Yeah, I think this has a lot of potential to keep building it out and can do that. And just wanted to give a shout out to Mary for helping with this in and also like in only a couple weeks time.
Yeah, Mary, thank you. Jumping in, both of you, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
I think Andrew has his hand up still.
Yeah, just real quick, I This is a follow-up from the Senate Natural Resources Committee presentation where, I mean, I just happen to be the one presenting on aquatic invasive species, and we did get a request by one of the senators for more information on mandatory or other types of boat decal programs. Meg and I have been chatting tonight, and I didn't know what the protocol was for providing follow-up information to these legislative committees. Whether we just send them some of the online information that's available, or whether we have something more that we would recommend, more specific that we would recommend as a committee. So I don't want to. I'm happy to just provide them some basic information, but I didn't know if we wanted to do anything more than that. So I just wanted to check in on that.
It's a great question, Andrew, and I think we've done different things at different times in our history. But I think because it all comes down to how much time people have. I think the last year when this happened, we actually came back to Katie and she helped us organize all the questions and put it into kind of a memo. I'm also totally comfortable if people have the information. I don't think there's any protocol, I guess I would say. I don't know that we have any kind of specific way that we've ever gone about doing this as a committee.
Okay.
Like sometimes we would send it all to Katie and she would put it together and send it off. Sometimes we just respond directly to the legislator that's asked the question. I think Hillary, you helped pull some information together last year about the question around the farm and how much money has been invested in water quality on farms. This is a terrible answer, Andrew, and I apologize, but that is my answer because I don't. What?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't know if Lori's available. I was going to reach out to her, and I can keep talking to Meg here and try to basically provide them some options and at least get the basic information to them.
Bob, you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, sorry, I keep talking. I just remembered last week, Senator Watson called me. Chair of the environmental for my CAC re-up, and I actually know her because she used to do high school classes, so we talked for quite some time. But nonetheless, yeah, just put that on the radar. I don't know if other people are getting those or whatnot. I sent her my resume and yada yada. So for whenever I last submitted my re-up, I don't even know the paperwork timeline at this point. I got a call from her for the CAC. Thank you.
Just to close out Andrew's question, I also that's another one similar to the South Lake access where I feel like we put that on the action plan every year as far as the boat, the decal piece and I just wonder if we want to put our heads together about how to move that more or how to work with others, because I feel like it's something we continue to put on the action plan, but I don't know.
More like a working group type thing, Karina, similar to the South Lake access.
I don't know. I'm curious what other people's thoughts are.
Yeah, I agree. It's been on a long time. I've never seen any movement on it. Sorry, this is Bob Fisher, and I guess you would want to try to reach out to some.
We had that.
An advocate in the senator somewhere.
Was it at the CAC that I saw that great presentation from the New York boat decal program, or was that an LCDT meeting? That was right. Okay.
And it's technically not a decal program. I mean, they have like a compliance sort of certification. It's voluntary. It's not enforceable, really. So they're struggling a lot with implementation of it. I think it's a great idea. But I think just like the wake boat home rule situation, a lot of this legislation has passed and it really fails to set aside funding to help implement the rules and the regs. And so I think that's one of the major cautionary tales I would put out there for the new my daughter Sky, for the decal program, Andrew, that you're talking about, is just making sure that if Vermont wants to pursue that, that there is funding set aside to administer and run the program, because oftentimes these programs pass and the state agency doesn't have any resources or staff to actually implement the program and track the information. So.
Great. Thank you, Meg. I'll probably follow up with you a little bit. Appreciate it. And your daughter, of course.
Could I just return to Andrew's procedural question half a second? My kind of knee-jerk reaction was, yeah, sure, Andrew should just respond. And as a matter of fact, after one of the meetings that we had to one of the House committees, I responded to a question that had been posed by one of the representatives, Representative Major, I think it was. But it all of a sudden dawns on me, are we subject to open meeting laws that any communication that we have that's kind of officially responding to someone, that needs to be made public in some way?
Is Eric still on? I don't know how to answer that.
Oh boy, this is Bob Fisher. I believe we went through this a long time ago, so I don't want to speak definitively on it. I think for some reason we weren't, but I can't say. If someone could, this topic did come up a long time ago.
I mean, we're all appointed, right? But we're not a governing body. We don't have any.
It was something like that.
I think, yeah. I don't know. We can maybe look into that, Breck. That's a good question. And maybe we do want to develop some sort of formal process for how we respond to legislators after we present. I think you CC'd myself and Karina on your email, which I appreciated and think that might be the way to go.
Yeah, yeah, we just, to keep our noses clean, probably should know what the regulation is around that.
Oh my God, I'm so bad at names. I think the person to reach out to was before Katie, before it went to the basin, it was the state, and she was great.
Michaela?
No, it was after Michaela. It was the one between. She's still with the state. She's moved up.
Bethany.
Bethany would know the answer to that.
Bethany. Yeah, Bethany.
Bethany, I believe, was the person in charge at that time point that I remember. Thank you.
Sarah, are you in contact with her? Can you ask her if she remembers, or if there's any?
Yeah, I can help look into it.
And maybe Eric Howe or somebody from the Basin program might know as well.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else tonight, guys? You want all a little time back to go watch the sunset since our days are longer? I'm actually outside right now.
I can try to turn on my camera. I'm not sure if it'll work.
Are you skiing, Bob?
No, but this is the view from my house, but I don't think it's doing anything.
Oh, yeah, we can see your face.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Are.
That's ugly.
Oh, that's pretty.
Oh, nice.
Thank you all. I know this is kind of a little bit of an admin meeting for us, but it is incredibly important for us to connect on this levels. Planning is no fun for anybody, but it's really important. So thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Mary, for your work on this and for the transition and making it as smooth as possible for us without Katie. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody in April at our next meeting.
Sounds good.
Karina, thanks for taking the helm this afternoon, since my commute to Montpelier is always longer than I want it to be.
No problem. See you guys.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.